being here right on time. So that's good. My name is Sarah Jones. I'm the acting director of the Community Development Agency for the County of Marin. So covering, for the purposes of this, the unincorporated areas of Marin County. And I'm joined here tonight by Kathleen Kilgariff. She is the planner who is the lead project manager for the potential new regulations on short-term rentals that we are starting to think about and pulling together and developing. And I also just want to welcome Supervisor Rodoni. I see his photo here, and Rhonda Cutter, his aide. Hey, Dennis. And
hey, how's she doing?
I think somebody just was. And also welcome to the some people who have joined some of our earlier ones. I'm happy to see you here tonight because we had talked about kind of how these different sessions might be different for different parts of the county. So as you probably know, we are starting to think about the possibility of, of additional long-term regulations around short-term rentals. We have addressed as a county some of the aspects of short-term rentals, but we really haven't developed any kind of consideration of them as a land use, as an activity that is happening within residential areas. We are specifically thinking about short-term rentals, what we're calling residential short-term rentals. So for the purposes of our Department of Finance and for business licenses, anything that provides visitor accommodation is called short-term rental. But what we are really looking at are situations where people are renting out a home or a part of a home or an accessory dwelling unit, something that is developed as a residential property for for visitor accommodations, either part-time or full-time. And, we're really at the beginning of this process. As probably all of you on this call know, we do have a moratorium in place in West Marin on new short-term rentals. So not ones that were in place before May, but addition of any new ones. And part of the reason that we put that into place was so that we could kind of get the situation stabilized and understand a baseline in looking ahead, thinking about, I'm sorry, I'm just going to ask people to mute, in thinking about long-term regulations for this kind of activity. And Kathleen in her presentation will get into sort of the reasons that this has emerged as such an issue, particularly in West Marin. But more broadly, as you also probably know, we're doing a lot of work around looking at the issues of housing supply and affordability in Marin County. That is partially because it is a big issue here, and partially because we are in our state mandated cycle of planning for housing and have been specifically directed by the state to look at all of the issues that are affecting housing supply and housing affordability in the county. So really pretty much every jurisdiction in the state where there is short-term rental activity in the process of their planning for housing need to look at and understand and address what role short-term rentals are playing if a significant number of units are being taken off the market, or if it's affecting prices, or just how it's playing into communities. And then another reason that we're looking into this is the community matter. We have heard from a number of communities in the county, particularly in West Marin, that the availability and prevalence of this use is really affecting things. And in some places, it is very much part of the history, the tradition, the existence, and the life of a community to have visitor accommodations. And then in other communities, not so much. We have a very multifaceted, very diverse county, and we are really at the start of trying to figure out what it looks like to manage and balance and provide for this kind of use in a way that is going to work across the communities that that it is addressing. So that's where we are around it. Really early days in this. We are just trying to fully understand countywide what the situation is, what's working, what's not, what steps we might want to recommend to the Board of Supervisors to take. So, you know, we are very much at a place of wanting to listen to you, hear your stories, hear your perspectives, and also give you some information about what we are seeing and, you know, what numbers we've been able to pull together to understand the story of short-term rentals going on in Marin right now. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kathleen, and I am going to also very quickly get this presentation going. So hang on. I'm driving the screen today, so bear with me. Great. Let me put it on the show. Sorry, I've got my windows messed up here. Okay, there we go. Good.
All right,
Great.
thanks so much, Sarah. So again, just want to welcome you tonight. This is a quick little overview of our agenda this evening. We've already started with some of the introductions. Again, I'm Kathleen Kilgare, helping manage the short-term rental program at the moment. I'm just going to provide a quick overview of short-term rentals in general and unincorporated areas of the county. We want to present some data that we've collected, and then also take some time to really talk about guiding principles and any other comments you want to share about short-term rentals. We're really using this opportunity as a way for us to both learn together so we can inform you or provide you some information about short-term rentals and what we're seeing, and you can do the same. And then we will just kind of quickly wrap up and provide some next steps. Well, this is going to be a long process, and we hope that you come along for the majority of it. Tonight is just kind of kicking this off. So bear with us as we show you some information, and we're looking forward to getting some more direction from you all at the end of this meeting.
And one thing that I forgot to mention before diving into this, so we have a portion of this presentation that's covering data, and then we have a portion of the presentation that is about, you know, about sort of our planning approaches that we're thinking about on this. So what we'd love to do is we'll go through the portion that's about data, and then we can answer any clarifying questions, and then we'll move on to the next part. We do have significantly more people here tonight than we've had at our other workshops. I think this is a much bigger issue in the western part of the county. So I'm really going to ask that people, you know, keep your comments brief. Give everybody who wants to speak a chance to speak. You know, feel free to use the chat to put your questions in there just for some efficiency. You know, we really want to make sure that that the range of perspectives is heard, and that anybody who has questions has a chance to get them answered.
Thanks. So our learning session goals this evening, like I noted, we're going to provide a quick history of short-term rentals in the county, introduce short-term rental data, discuss community visions and priorities, and share next steps in the process. Next slide.
Oops. Oops.
So that you're all aware. No, you're good. This is great. Yeah. So the Marin County Board of Supervisors approved our first short-term rental ordinance in 2018. The ordinance required operators to obtain both a business license and a transient occupancy tax certificate, but it also established some good neighbor policies to alleviate the impacts of short-term rentals on surrounding communities. Some examples of these good neighbor policies include building upon existing short-term county regulations, such as the noise ordinance, parking requirements, trash requirements. And so those kind of informed how we can be better neighbors as we operate short-term rentals. It also asked that a booklet or handout was created informing all guests of these good neighbor policies so that they could be aware of them as well. And it also included the requirement that you would provide neighbors within 300 feet information, contact information for a local contact person. And that person was going to be able to respond to any issues that may arise. Additionally, it established a third-party monitoring system that run by host compliance. This helps the Department of Finance regulate short-term rentals, and it also hosts a hotline that allows folks to submit complaints or concerns associated with short-term rentals that we currently monitor. Then in 2020, we made a slight change to our short-term rental ordinance in really only changed to how the local contact person is provided to the county. There were some confidentiality regulations around the business license and how we could share contact information between departments. And so the way that we changed it is now that it's tied to the transient occupancy tax certificate, which allows the planning department to access the contact information should any concerns be brought to our attention around short-term rentals so that we can follow up with the operators. At the time in 2020, folks definitely wanted us to engage in a more robust reevaluation of our short-term rental ordinance, but given the time during the pandemic, it just didn't seem very realistic for us to be able to update the ordinance with the same sort of robust community involvement that we would like. So now that we feel like people are more used to Zoom and all the other outreach ways that we have, given the past couple years, we're re-engaging in this process. It also comes on the heels of a moratorium that was put in place in West Marin, which is something that you probably are all aware of. Sarah noted it as well. So that went into effect in May of 2022 and will end May 23, 2024, unless we develop some regulations and policies that are approved beforehand. If that takes place, then the moratorium will end. Next slide.
Sorry, I don't know why I don't know why the slides are not advancing. Here we go.
This is just a image of the Measure W tax area. We kind of go between calling it West Marin and the Measure W tax area. So anything in orange falls within that moratorium. Just wanted you all to be able to see the full picture of that area. Now we'll get into some short-term rental data. So first, we wanted to just kind of understand a baseline of how many residentially developed properties exist within the county of Marin. We found that there are 23,053 properties that currently have at least one living unit on the site. In West Marin, we have 5,263. And then we also wanted to understand the number of residential units on those properties. We have a total of 27,573 residential units as a whole. So there are, a number of properties that are developed with more than one unit. This will be helpful in understanding where short-term regulations go, because folks may have multiple units on their property and they may use them in different ways. We have properties that have accessory dwelling units. We have properties that are multifamily units. So just kind of understanding the number of properties and units that we're working with kind of helps to set the tone for where we can go with our analyses. So like I said, we're also looking into properties developed with one unit versus those that are developed with more than one. In West Marin, you've got 4,524 units that are properties that have one unit, and you have 737 with multifamily units. That brings us to a total of 21,187 properties that are developed with one unit in the county as a whole, and 1,866 properties that are multifamily. So now that we know where the housing units are located, we wanted to understand where short-term rentals are located. There are a total of 873 residential short-term rentals that are registered with the county. 621 of those lie within the West Marin area. Because we've been hosting these meetings on a district-wide basis, we wanted to kind of provide some screenshots and some high-level information about where short-term rentals are located throughout the county. So we started with District 1. We had a District 1 meeting last week. About 1% of those properties that are currently developed with a living unit in the unincorporated areas of San Rafael are used as short-term rentals. District 2, which comprises of San Anselmo, Greenbrae, Fairfax, and Kentfield. All those communities each have about 1% of their parcels used as short-term rentals as well. District 3, Southern Marin. We still have some properties in timber parcel towns and communities, communities in Southern Marin like Tiburon and Sausalito that have 1% of their developed parcels used to short-term rentals. Marin City is at 2%, and then we're getting up to a few more. In Mill Valley, they've got 143 registered short-term rentals, about 3% of their housing stock. And then we've got District 4. I'm just going to pause on this slide for a little bit so that you all can take a look. It's a big district with lots of communities, and we've arranged the slide by the percentage of parcels used as short-term rentals. So you'll see 31% in Villa Beach, down to 0% in San Quentin. But if we're looking just at the West Marin side, we have 2% in Woodacre.
And we can come back.
We can also come back to, yeah.
And we're also going to be posting these slides, so nobody needs to write it all down.
Mm-hmm. And then District 5, the unincorporated areas in Novato, again, 1% of those properties are used as short-term rentals. So you're seeing that in the western side of the county, we've got a lot more short-term rentals than we have on the eastern side. Now that we understand, where our short-term rentals are located, we also kind of have to understand the rental market and what is incentivizing folks to either rent long-term or short-term. What we're seeing so far in the data that we've taken a look at, that you're gonna be able to probably earn a little bit more money doing a short-term rental as opposed to a long-term rental. This information comes from AirDNA for the short-term rental data, and it can be found online as well by searching that website. This is the short-term rental market. Oh, pardon. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, so this is the short-term rental data that we collected from AirDNA for properties or for communities in West Marin. While we have received some feedback that this does not appear to be accurate, this is still information that people are using to make decisions about whether or not to operate short-term rentals. And it may be the reason why somebody chooses to purchase a property.
Somebody keeps
So it's
reading me. I would like to say.
Linda, we're gonna go through the data and then we can take questions and comments.
okay.
And
So yeah, we can revisit this conversation, because I do know that this is something that people have feedback on, and we've received feedback. We will be looking into additional data that we can find, looking at TOT, looking at information that the Department of Finance can provide around operating long-term rentals or short-term rentals. And then, as I noted, host compliance has been collecting complaints, or they've been collecting a database of complaints that have been submitted to the county around short-term rentals. This doesn't capture, all the communications you may have provided with your supervisor, but it does capture the comments that we've received through host compliance. So over the 4 years, we've had 291 complaints. They're kind of broken down into different categories, as you can see in the left-hand column. Folks also said, well, that's great to know, but like, where are these located? What's the arrangement over the years? And so we broke it down by years and then also by community. So you can see that there are some places where we get a higher number of complaints than others and different years. I know that 2020, we definitely got a lot of communications around folks who were operating outside of the shelter-in-place regulations. So that's where we see 109 in 2020, really around those issues. So kind of varies and depends on the time of the year and the complaint types, but we are collecting any information around them, and we're here to help and address them in any way we can. Next slide. We also know that we have a lot of communities that are closely tied to incorporated areas, more so in the eastern areas of the county, but we just kind of wanted to understand what the other regulations are like in our incorporated cities and towns. So we can let you know that Belvedere, Tiburon, Sausalito, Larkspur, and Corte Madera currently prohibit short-term rentals. So Corte Madera is starting a conversation around whether or not they should allow them with certain regulations. San Anselmo and Ross allow short-term rentals, but they don't have any specific regulations as to how they operate. And then Mill Valley, San Rafael, Novato, and Fairfax allow short-term rentals subject to registration and certain defined regulations. Next slide.
Oh, so I think let's pause here and take questions about the data. I'm going to ask people to either put questions in the chat or raise your hands. I just want to make sure that we, are able to kind of get the questions out there that people have. So I see Molly has her hand raised, but you have to unmute.
Hi, I just thank you. It was a very clear presentation. I appreciate it. The Mill Valley data, was that just for incorporated? Because what I saw, I thought it just said for incorporated Mill Valley. And what about unincorporated Mill Valley?
So all the data is for unincorporated Mill Valley. If there's information about incorporated, it's only just providing information about how many properties that are developed with residential units are within the unincorporated areas, just so you can kind of see the differences between the towns and the unincorporated areas of those surrounding communities.
Okay, thank you.
I see a question from Michael.
Yeah, just a quick question on the monthly income for STRs, how that was calculated, given that those are heavily, subject to turnover, how many days minimum, just how it was a calculated metric.
Yeah, so that information is provided by AirDNA, which is a short-term rental monitoring company. They look at the hosts like listings, availability for nights. They look at the average nightly rates, and they have an algorithm that scrapes the website and analyzes that data and then provides monthly updates on those. It's not information that we had special access to. Anybody can go to airdna.com and see those same numbers or changes over the years.
Got it. But as for how it's calculated, you're not sure.
They're using the nightly rates to calculate them and looking at occupancy.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I see I'm looking at the chat right now. I see So there's a comment from Eric Davis that he requested for more breakdown of the information on the complaints, which we kind of sliced and diced it, and can talk further with you offline about further breakdown of it. I do want to just mention that our big takeaway from the information about the complaints, which is just something that of course we're tracking because we are those are coming to us, and those are just the complaints that come to us via host compliance, but it really is a pretty small number, 291 over the course of 4 years. And of course, probably some of it is even more affected by, very specific situations. I think we saw, a couple of communities had a lot of complaints. Very likely those might be coming from the same people. But, really it does seem that, the issues that caused us to feel that there was a need to put in some good neighbor policies are working. We're not getting a lot of complaints, and that would indicate that there's by and large, people are kind of operating these activities in a way that is, more or less consistent with the fact that they're in residential neighborhoods. So that's our biggest takeaway from the complaints. And then there's a question from Bob Johnston. What regs are used in the cities?
I didn't.
Eric, you're muted. Eric is muted. I think maybe we can go on to Bob Johnston's question. What regs are used in the cities? Bob, do you want to ask a little bit more about that?
Well, yeah, we're having a meeting here. We're going to go on and presumably talk about regulations. It matters what the neighbors are doing.
Yeah, and it does vary.
All over the world, people have adopted days per year maximums, and owner must be in unit and other such things all over the world. And so we just need to know what's going on in the county here with the where Airbnb and all that. When people go on those websites, they're doing a comparative analysis.
Yeah, and it does kind of vary throughout the cities and towns. For example, Mill Valley wants you to register and follow some good neighbor policies. They don't have limitations on what types of units can be used as short-term rentals. Conversely, in San Rafael, Nevada, they want it to be a primary home. They do have limitations on what can be rented out. You can't use affordable housing units as short-term rentals. And some places, accessory dwelling units that were built after a certain year aren't allowed. A lot of agencies that have it, like San Rafael, Nevada, Fairfax, they require inspections of the unit to make sure that it's in compliance with like California building regulations. They also have inspections if you're in the WUI for compliance with the wild urban interland fire standards. So they can be self-reported, but it just kind of depends on what we're looking at. But a lot of communities are addressing short-term rentals in various ways.
But I think, and adding to that on your question, this is an issue all over the place, and a lot of cities do have different requirements and different regulations. I think one thing that's interesting is a number of the Marin County cities supposedly prohibit short-term rentals. You can only do rentals of 30 days or more. But if you go on AirDNA, they're talking about what's going on with the short-term rentals in those cities. And there are certainly short-term rentals happening in those cities. So when we get to the guiding principles, we'll talk a little bit more about what kinds of considerations we want to take into place in thinking about the regulations. And so we can get there, and we will be looking at and evaluating what places all over are doing, and how effective that is, and whether it's working to achieve what it was intended to achieve.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I see a couple of questions about, is there a moratorium to get new short-term rental licenses in county areas? There is a moratorium in place in the West Marin area, in that Measure W area. I can go back to that slide, and that is the Board of Supervisors has put that into place. It would expire in May 2024. So that is in place. I see Rachel says she's raising her hand via chat. So Rachel, did you have a question?
I do. Thank you. I actually have two questions. One is the data that you showed about the unauthorized, about complaints, excuse me, under complaints, the unauthorized short-term rentals were by far the largest. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so unauthorized short-term rental, I think at the beginning it was kind of like a catch-all if you didn't feel like your issue kind of fell within one of those specific categories. That was a popular one to choose. And then it turned into more of a way to identify short-term rentals that may not be operating with a business license or their TOT certificate. And then during shelter in place, it was a way that folks could notify us of the fact that it appeared that short-term rentals were being used for reasons not explicitly permitted through the shelter in place order.
Okay, well, thank you. I do think that's worthy of pointing out in your discussions, because you will see more and more probably non-compliant with the more and more regulations that you put on. We see this everywhere in the world. So I just wanted to point out that that was exceptionally high. The other thing is, it's really hard with your data to compare any other community with West Marin. West Marin, the entire landmass is a national park compared to other communities throughout the county. And so really in looking at that and showing what these homes are used for and why people are doing it, seems that it should be part of your data. With that, do you have data in the West Marin region? I imagine the second homes, people who have second homes out here, is much higher as well. Do you have that percentage? Do you have those numbers?
We've looked. Oh, do you want to go, Sarah?
Oh yeah, I can. I mean, so we have the way we can assess that, or one of the best ways to assess that is how many people are taking the primary home exemption in their taxes, and so that's our way of understanding it. Yes, certainly there are a lot of homes for sure. I mean, it goes without saying, the whole picture of land use and what communities, what is part of community life in West Marin is really different than in the rest of the county. And what we're doing right now is trying to get a sense of the whole picture countywide and how it differs from one part of the county to another. This is really the first that we have pulled all of this data together, specifically drilling it down in this way, and really seeing in these numbers very much what we had suspected, which, well, I would say even more than we had suspected, just how much more prevalent short-term rental is as a proportion of the use in West Marin. So we're really still working with this data. We wanted to share it and get reactions, and this is going to feed into a lot of what we think about and consider. So I don't know.
So that data can be really faulty without really considering that landmass and why people are here, and actually the public's obligation to make sure that the public park is open to the public. And so all of those, I would encourage you to include in additional studies that you do. And
well, yeah, I'm sorry,
I'm
sorry, I don't want to cut you off but I just want to, we will convey as we talk about the things that we think are important to take into account in this work,
Mhm.
which will be the next section.
Okay, and then I'm sure I'll have things to say there too. Thank you.
Yes. We have a question. What's the number of hotel rooms versus short-term rental, and what impact those numbers have on the local business owners? So I'm just going to quickly answer this one. We have had to sort of split out our data on short-term rental to figure out what's hotel and what's residential short-term rental. We can provide that that information later. You know, it's it's taken a bit of work to pull it all out. And then what impact those numbers have on the local business owners. You know, we are also, yes, it is important for us to understand and characterize the role that short-term rentals play and the role that hotel rooms play in the economy, both, you know, on all sides, directly in terms of visitors, and then indirectly in terms of the local economy that is supporting this visitor serving use. So are you able to share information about the operators? I'm curious to know if short-term rentals are individual owner operators versus corporations. This is something that we are trying to learn, and also something that we want to consider in the regulations themselves. Is it, you know, an individual, somebody who has one short-term rental or a lot of short-term rentals? Is it a situation of a hosted, you know, renting out a room or renting out an accessory dwelling unit versus, you know, someone who's really not living on the property at all and just renting it out full time? So that's something that we don't know yet, but is important to this overall consideration. How is AirDNA chosen as a monitor for short-term rentals? AirDNA isn't a monitor. It's just a source of, it's a source of information. They are pulling data off of the short-term rental platforms, which is something that we are not able to do. And so we looked at the information that they're presenting, which is really more geared towards, I think mainly geared towards short-term rental hosts. And that is, you know, that's a window into what's going on. So that's how we're using it. Another question about, can we obtain a new permit in Bolinas? At this point in time, the moratorium is in place. I see a comment here about the moratorium, which is we do in, you know, it is in place at this point until May 2024. If we are able to develop long-term regulations in advance of that and bring them through the Coastal Commission and the Board of Supervisors, that would supersede the moratorium. Comment about number of complaints. Sorry, I'm just going through these really fast because I want to make sure we get to the next part of the presentation. Another comment from John about the annual rental use in Dillon Beach, and that, you know, that is noted. We did discuss that at an earlier meeting, and you know, as Kathleen mentioned, this is information that is available, that is being provided to people who are considering hosting short-term.
Can I speak though? But you're presenting this as data. You're using this as a spreadsheet as data for everyone to see, and that data is not correct. So that, in a way, that's you're absolutely using false information. So that should be addressed, because 84% annual usage at rental and at any house out here is absolutely false.
You know, I think It is definitely noted. We do not have a way to verify what is being provided on this website.
But you're using this as a slideshow to everyone to give them information. And you're saying.
And we are representing where it came from. So I think,
yeah, but you're also
John, you know what, John, I don't want to, I think we have worked to convey where this came from and why it's meaningful. It's not meaningful because we know that's exactly what's happening. It's meaningful because this is what people are understanding from this public website about what the short-term rental situation is. And that's just it's kind of something for us to understand in the whole picture.
Yeah, but you also have to understand it's concerning for us to have inaccurate information on your slideshows. So that's concerning to us as the public.
We will, when we post this, we will put a note very visible that reflects that feedback that we've gotten from you about this information that came off of this third-party website.
It's important for you to do this.
We will do that.
Or find a second and third party to investigate this information too, because just one source that is producing false information is that's not fair or correct.
Yeah,
Right.
we noted that as we were giving the presentation, that's not the last place that we'll be looking. And based on the conversation we had last week, I felt like we got to a point where we agreed that there were other places we could look, and we're gonna find that information.
But we wanted to bring it up because you have a whole new group this time.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
We
And
just
agreed.
wanna bring this up and acknowledge it because there's a whole new group. And it's concerning to us because this is definitely not accurate information.
we definitely, we hear you. It is information that's out there that a lot of people do use. I think that's important to us in terms of understanding what is driving people's decision-making, but we will definitely note this when we talk about it. And I see there's a bunch of more questions and comments on here, so I do want to move on. And the next one, well, before I do that, I want to first go to some people who have patiently been raising their hands, and then we'll go back to the chat. So Rob.
Yes, just in terms of data, I wanted to accent and follow up on Rachel's comments about the differences between West Marin and places like San Rafael or Corte Madera, which were built out as single-family homes often, or apartments for full-time residents, as opposed to the coastal communities, which were built as second homes by and large, and historically have been used as second homes, with owners not wanting to use it part-time, but given the current costs and taxes and everything else, managing their property by renting them out part of the time. And that just, I'm sure it happens occasionally in a San Rafael or a Corte Madera, but I think you'll find a very different profile historically, and I think it's material if you were to somehow or another look at historical data on individual properties and even just their construction, their the vintage, etc. That it's a quite different set of communities in particularly Dillon Beach or Stinson Beach than many of the other communities you're trying to compare. I think they're really apples and oranges. So I hope your new data, as you keep working on it, will try to incorporate those differences. Thanks.
Yeah, no, we're very well aware of the extreme differences. I mean, Marin is a small county, but it is a very diverse one in terms of land uses and activities, and even across the communities in West Marin. There are a lot of differences in terms of the historical use and flavor and character of the community in different places. And we'll get more into this in the, when we talk about some of the considerations, but, we very much recognize that short-term rentals exist and thrive for a lot of reasons, and they're an important thing in the community for all sorts of reasons. So that's why we are really trying to find a way to achieve a balance around the issues that have emerged for communities with them, but also making sure that it is something that people can continue to do. So I do want to keep going with the questions. I saw Susan's had her hand up for a while, so.
Hi, I'm in Inverness, and thank you so much for doing the moratorium. It's a long time coming, and to say that you're just starting to think about this now and you're just at the beginning of the process is a bit upsetting, because we definitely have been having a problem in West Marin, particularly in the communities around Tomales Bay, which are not just second home communities. They're actual communities, and the houses are being brought up we just constantly by investors who think that they can always rent it out on Airbnb or whatever. So I'm just wondering what role is during this moratorium period, is the county going to try to take a role in like communicating with realtors to make sure that they let people know that we are eventually going to have some robust short-term rental ordinance that so they shouldn't be buying these properties thinking that they can just snack, make a ton of money off of short-term rentals. It's once the horse is out of the barn and the house has been sold, it makes it a lot harder to impose an ordinance.
Yeah, no, yes. I mean, thank you for raising all of those points, and that is exactly why we're trying to get an understanding, at least in a broad brush kind of way, of these numbers, so that we can try to get a sense of what's going. I'm looking at the questions in the chat and the comments in the chat, and a lot of them are about, kind of some of these broader planning issues, and I'm not seeing questions of clarification specifically about the data, although I do see one about the scraping, which you are kind of, I mean, there is a whole lot of work that is done in the tech world around this data, and around there's sort of a cottage industry that's grown up around short-term rental platforms. So I am looking at I am not equipped to answer Scott's question about screen scraping and sort of how that works and how that takes into account the difference in the numbers. I don't know if Kathleen is, but also I'm going to ask, I see Scott put his hand up. David, do you have a question about data, or is it?
I have a question, Sarah, and it has to do with, does the process between now and when you draft something for the board to consider as an ordinance, does it allow for this level of involvement to digest and critique the data? Because what's happening now is it's 10 minutes to 7. There's still a lot of your presentation to be made. And rather than have the opportunity to get the full overview of what you want to share with us, we're digging down in, we're turning over grains of sand, and we're denying people that have to get off the Zoom call the opportunity to hear all of what you have to say. Now, I'm making that plea, assuming that your process allows for this level of detail, not in this meeting, but in subsequent meetings.
we will have ongoing dialogue and, kind of respond to the points that are raised in this whole session and work through it. So yes, there is further opportunity within this effort to dig into this. So
I really want to hear
yeah,
the
no,
rest of what you
I'm
have to
right with
say.
you. It'd be great to move on to the rest of the
So,
presentation.
well, then you can move us along, please. And people can put on hold if they're going to have an opportunity to dig into this detail later. Let's hear the whole overview.
Okay. And I see Scott added to his question, and he also has his hand up, but the further question is really something to come up after the rest of the overview. So Kathleen, I am going to ask you to go on to this. We can still come back to any, to talking about the data, but I'd like to start talking about the planning considerations first.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So I think a lot of the questions that were asked help kind of set up this next slide, in that we recognize that there are a lot of varying opinions on this subject. We recognize that there are a lot of factors at play, and we recognize that we want to be inclusive throughout this entire ordinance development, and we want your involvement, and we want your feedback on these draft guiding principles that we've been tooling with. And so this is just our initial stab. We've had some feedback that we've found to be very helpful, and we welcome your feedback as part of this meeting as well, or as putting it in the chat, or sending us some follow-up. We'll have our contact information at the end. I just want to let you know that we're going to prioritize housing supply and affordability, and consider regulations in light of their effects on the cost and availability of housing within individual communities. I would also note that we also view this affordability and housing availability in the context of short-term rentals. We have received lots of feedback from community members that this allows them to stay in their homes, allows them to age in place. So it's not just about our current housing stock, it's about how folks can use their property to stay here as well. We want to advance equity and access to economic opportunities, services, and activities in the county. Marin is a beautiful place, and it has a lot of great amenities that people can visit. We want to ensure that there's access to those places. We also want people to be able to, live here and afford where they live. We want them to be able to have shorter commutes to work. So we're considering all of those as part of this work. We want to consider environmental constraints such as water availability. We want to recognize that Marin County has historically provided vacation opportunities to the greater Bay Area, as well as state, even nationally. We know that people come to visit Marin County, and they have for a very long time. So we want to make sure that can still happen. We want to understand the short-term rental market, as we've been discussing, not just for those who are operators, but those who work within the communities. How are they affected or benefited by them? How does that all work? And you'll see we have kind of another slide where we've identified stakeholders, and that is where we hope to get this kind of feedback, as David noted, getting more into the details and the data. We want to do that with folks who are closely tied to it. We want to develop regulations that are clear, affordable, simple, and enforceable. If we can't create regulations that follow these, it's really going to be a difficult thing to do to implement. So we want to make sure that not only is it affordable for everybody, but it's also the county is recovering our costs. So that's something that we have to consider as part of this work. We also want to assure that short-term rentals are good neighbors, considering noise, parking, trash, and other neighborhood quality of life concerns. And so as part of our next steps, we want to work to develop a refined strategy. And we want to also build upon strategies and things that other communities have done in our areas in the past that worked. We want to work with the Coastal Commission staff because large portion of West Marin is within the coastal zone. They will be working on the regulations with us as well. We'll have to get them approved by the Coastal Commission if they're within the coastal zone. And we want to have a first public draft for review available by spring 2023. I say first because I don't think it would be the last, and we want to have a robust public outreach approach with this. We want your involvement. We want to make this a very inclusive process. So spring 2023 is what we're aiming for, but that won't be the last time we'll talk about this. Next slide. Oh. All right, there we go. Thought I had a slide about the stakeholders that we've identified. I'll just lightly touch on it. With it's short-term rental operators, it's short-term rental neighbors, it's the agricultural community. Okay, yeah, okay. But yeah, agricultural community, local business owners, housing groups, the Marin Association of Realtors, local school districts, emergency service providers, utility providers. We received feedback that there's also a vacation rental managers association. That would be a great group to engage with on this. So if anyone else has any stakeholders or any ideas about engagement, please let us know, because we are open to it and we want to continue this conversation.
So I'm going to stop sharing so that we can see each other a little bit better. And then I'll kind of go through the chat. I do see some hands up, but I'm going to start with the chat just because some of them have been in here a while. I do want to call it. I'm going to try to go through these in order. Although there is a little back and forth too, so I might if I've missed something and you feel like I skipped over what you want to say, just feel free to raise your hand. But somebody said, what is the purpose of this meeting? Are we trying to decide anything? And just to be clear, we're not trying to decide anything right now. We're trying to this is called a learning session. We want to let you know what we know so far, what we're thinking about so far, and we also really want to hear from people about, the perspectives and thoughts about short-term rentals and the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. And we're really, just trying to understand the scope of the situation in Marin County so that we can then focus any further work around issues that need to be addressed and not, kind of bring forward solutions that are just creating that are creating new problems. And so that's really what we're trying to do here. So no, we're not deciding anything at this meeting at all. We're really just trying to take feedback. So I'm going to scroll up the thread here to just try to get to where we are. Sorry, I'm trying to capture where I was. Okay, so I'm going to, first I'm looking for, if you have not spoken yet, or if you're kind of way down in the chat and want me to get to you beforehand, please raise your hand so that we can be sure that everybody who wants to speak or weigh in or ask a question has a chance to do that. But now I'm going to go to, we got one that, pointing out that a lot of the complaints that came in were in 2020 and during the lockdown, and that's something that Kathleen had noted about them. So yes, there was a specific set of situations during the lockdown, and that's, I mean, that is kind of how the complaints went during that time, and we do recognize the connection to the lockdown and to the additional rules around short-term rentals at that time. And of course, that was a pretty weird time, to say the least. So a comment about Oceana Marin in Dillon Beach, that it was always considered for second homes, and, for visitor accommodations. And yes, that has absolutely been part of the story of many, many communities in West Marin, but I'd say particularly Oceana Marin, and Dillon Beach as a whole. And, that's something that we understand and want to take into account. The nature of things has potentially shifted with the rise of the short-term rental platforms versus the more traditional approaches to renting out homes for visitors. But yes, that is the historic use, and that's why we've reflected that in the guiding principles that we're thinking about. So just a comment about how things were pretty chilled in Dillon Beach during COVID. Definitely glad to hear that. And generally, I think some really interesting thoughts and points about how things work in Dillon Beach. And, this is, I think that we will want to pay a lot of attention to how that's going in that community, particularly because we do need to think about and tailor and craft what regulations might look like and where it might be appropriate to have geographic specific regulations. Now I'm going to pause on going through the chat. Are there rules? There is a question in this. Are there rules in other communities regarding paid community monitor and street parking? That is something I don't know. Kathleen, are you aware of anything along those lines?
I have not seen anything specific about that, but there are communities that use funds to have like a broader enforcement arm for their short-term rentals, which we don't currently have at the county.
And that's where, we have to think about the cost to owners as well as the cost to the county of whatever kind of management approaches are used. I am going to now call on Rachel, or not Rachel, I'm going to call on Jamie because he hasn't spoken yet, and then I'll pop over to Molly and to Rachel and then go back to the chat.
Thanks, Sarah. I just wanted to make kind of a comment. My name is Jamie Robertson. We live in unincorporated part of West Marin, and I think this is obviously a highly complex issue with a lot of stakeholders and a lot of different things. So I appreciate the complexity of the issue and the thoughtfulness that you guys are taking and approaching it and looking at all angles. I wanted to kind of share our story. We're a young family and millennial generation. We've always lived in houses where we're able to utilize short-term rentals to kind of increase the utility of our property, and that allows us to live in these expensive markets. And so I think with any well-crafted legislation, the nuance of how it's implemented is key. And so here, I think I just wanted to make the point that it really enables people to, in our generation, to live in these high cost areas, and it's really essential to being able to attract new families to the area as well. So hopefully it sounds like that's on your guiding principles list, but I just wanted to put a name to the face and appreciate the complexity of the problem and share our story. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And now I'm going to go to Molly and then Rachel and then Donna and then go back to the chat.
Hi, I'm Molly. I've been a homeowner and an unincorporated Mill Valley since 2005. I raised my daughters there. I still own my home there. I'm not there right now, but unincorporated Mill Valley is just so different from Seadrift and Stinson Beach. As I've knew about Dillon Beach. I mean, I grew up going to Seadrift. My family rented a home there once a week, every year. They became homeowners at one point. They didn't. Anyways, that's always been, and it sounds like there's a part of Dillon Beach that's always been a vacation rental and area. Having that, and this is just like my personal experience, having the same county rules for Stinson Beach. And well, I know Seadrift particularly. I mean, I'm very familiar with that. Having known Seadrift is the same for where, just up over the hill where I raised my daughters in unincorporated Mill Valley is where the craziness starts happening. Because they're just so very different communities. And I do have a question. Does the county, because I'm in unincorporated Mill Valley, does the county is it legal? Do you have the ability to make regulations in separate communities that then, or does it have to be one regulation for everyone because it's one county?
We can have different regulations in different locations. That's, we need to think about kind of how well we can implement things, but we're in recognition that there's very likely not going to be a one-size-fits-all solution for the whole county.
Okay, yeah, because they're really, I mean, there can't be. I mean, they're just so different. And it's been a frustration as a homeowner in Mill Valley. I mean, yes, sometimes there's benefits being part of unincorporated, but you don't have a voice in part of the town of Mill Valley. It's just an issue in general with the county. But in this issue particularly, I really hope that you guys, and I know it takes a lot of, because you guys put so much work in already, it takes a lot of work, will take a lot of work to find something like that, because it would be so sad. I mean, we haven't been able to go and rent a house at Stinson Beach, which we love to do, even though just over the hill, it's just so different and precious because of the 30-day moratorium. 30 days is just, as you know, much harder to get away than 1 week. Anyways, that's just,
yeah, and we should talk offline. The moratorium is on additional licenses after May of this year for short-term rentals. So there's still, there are the existing ones in Stinson, but we can.
Okay,
we can definitely address that. But to your broader point, yes, we recognize that
like
there's
the county up at Dillon Beach, Seadrift, they're counties that were designed to be second homes and vacation rentals, and other communities that aren't. And that's so really encouraged to try not to do one law, one regulation for everyone. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Rachel has had her hand up for a while. Then I'm going to go to the chat, and then I'll come back to Scott.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for pulling together this, what you call a learning session. And I appreciate that you're reaching out to learn. I do hope that the one thing, if there's anything that we're learning from the abundance of questions here around data, is that more time needs to be put into gathering more data and better data. So I hope you guys will really take that away. I look at your deadline of spring 2023, which is really only a few months away, but to put together the first draft of guidelines. But if you don't have correct data, your guidelines are going to be based on faulty assumptions. That is not going to help anyone in our community, and certainly not going to result in what I think you're driving an agenda towards. But it's going to be faulty. So please, really, I hope that you'll look into what people have been saying here. I want to just call out a few of those. The economic benefits of the travel hospitality industry has to be looked at. The county has partners who focus on this very thing. I know this has been asked for years of the county. I myself have put it in writing several years ago when you were first coming up with guidelines. And as did others. So please please, you have the data, bring that data out for the public to see the benefit of the hospitality industry. And then really look at the profiles of the communities, the individual communities, because to put West Marin in the same category as other parts of the county, where West Marin is all about a national park, therefore serving the public, providing visitor services, it's all travel and tourism. The economy is 100% based on it. To leave that out, again, is not it's not helping our community. And with that, and the reason why I bring up the second homeowners, as you know, communities in West Marin have historically been second homes, and they still are. There's nothing about a second home that would be opened up if you reduce their ability to short-term rent. It does not mean that you're going to have housing stock for people to long-term rent. The people who have short-term rentals want access to their home throughout the year. The short-term rentals allow them to also bring visitors into the community when they're not here. There's no way the home will ever go on for a long-term, haven't historically, and won't going into it. So again, without the proper data that you guys are looking at, you're going to be making faulty guidelines. And lastly, the guidelines, the draft guidelines that you threw up there, those are all anti-short-term rental guidelines. There's nothing saying, hey, let's help the short-term rental community provide a service to our community and do this together. And so I would really encourage you to step back and let's call this what it is, or really present the proper data and present the proper guidelines, and let's address these needs in our community together. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for raising all of those points. And you know, the aspect of the role that it plays in the economy is a big one, and as well as, you know, we definitely have more work to do around the data from the standpoint of verifying and getting more. This is a pretty it's a pretty significant amount of work to try to parse out the role of short-term rentals, and the way, given that this is something that has not been monitored over the last several years specifically for that issue. So I'm going to go to the chat now.
Then please don't create policy if you don't have the data. Until you guys have the data, don't create the policies.
We are continuing to work on that. Thank you.
Sarah, we should actually let Scott go because he has been active in the chat and tried to speak last time. So
okay,
it might be good to let him speak.
Hello, and thank you for all the time and effort to pull all this together. I'm really glad that I'm following Rachel, because I kind of felt like I might be alone in this sentiment. This feels extremely lopsided, and I want to know right now in front of everybody who is embedded in this process in our local government, who is dedicated to protecting homeowners, whether they own one home or two home or 10 homes, to make sure that this doesn't get slipped in or shimmied through a crack somewhere when no one's paying attention around some holiday coming up. It's been done before, and this doesn't feel like a good, equitable, well-rounded, properly data-driven project. No offense.
you know, our responsibility as government planners is to carry forward a process that is taking into account the positions and interests of all of the stakeholders who are part of this and all of the people who are affected by this. And, you know, we are really right at the beginning, and we have a ton of work to do and a lot of different people to be working with and hearing from and understanding on where this all goes. And we don't want to, we want to put something forward that is going to strike a balance. There are, you know, there are a lot of perspectives out here on this. I think we're hearing, more strongly than we have heard before from the perspective of homeowners and of specific short-term rental operators tonight. And we've, this is going to be a process that goes forward over the next many months, and we're going to be learning and listening and refining and considering all the way through it. If you have thoughts or ideas around the best ways to reach people, it would be great to hear them. We have the tools that we use, that we've been able to put in place around sort of focusing on our website and on our subscriptions. We want to get more broadly out onto social media and hear it. But, when we are bringing recommendations to the Board of Supervisors, they are going to want to know what we have been hearing and how we have been responsive to the whole range of people affected by this. So, this is something that we are, truly not, we are not coming from it with an assumption about what any new regulations might look like or what the outcome might be. We are just at this point, we have heard and seen and need to address a potential problem and a potential kind of imbalance in some communities, definitely not all communities, but in some communities. And that is what we are really working through, how to figure out how to do. And what that ends up looking like is that we come and talk to people when, we don't have everything mapped out, because if we had everything mapped out, that's what a black box, disingenuous process would look like. And we're really trying to do the opposite of that.
Okay, well, thanks for that answer. I think the key thing in front of everybody is to be fully transparent, to be exhaustively, proactively transparent. To your point of how to get through to everybody, I think you should make sure that everybody who pays taxes in the county of Marin, who is potentially impacted by this, you all know how to be perfectly, you all know how to get through to us. You get through to us with our property tax bills. So you probably ought to do some data mining and figure out how to make sure that everybody potentially impacted by this has a letter and or an electronic communication so that no one is left out. I mean, at the end of the day, I have empathy for the person I don't even know who can't even sell their house because the price has been beaten down because of the moratorium. What do? Go to the county recorder and assessor and have their property tax or their property value adjusted so that they can pay less property taxes to help offset the fact that they're getting whacked. I mean, this is really, again, the initial gut feel on this is, I don't know how far you're into this process, but this doesn't feel good. And I'm really glad I hopped in this call because I thought, well, this is going to be no big deal. It'll play out equitably, but I think transparency, proactive, and just absolute thorough outreach, and then who among homeowners is being represented, who is embedded in this process so that something doesn't get snuck by everybody.
We're kind of sussing out the whole picture, and if it feels like it makes sense to have a task force, we would consider pulling that together and thinking about how that best fits into the feedback around these. And there are a variety of perspectives out there, and yeah, the homeowners are a very important one for sure. And
okay,
there are also other perspectives as well.
Sure, understand that. Homeowners also pay taxes, and they pay taxes and they pay for everything that the tax base covers. So I'll step aside. I would just ask that you make sure that your task force includes realtors and homeowners and people who will be massively impacted by anything that is blunt force trauma. So thank you for being transparent. And maybe we should have you say that you'll address all the stuff that's brought up in the chat in a Q&A so that it becomes part of the record.
Yeah, we saved the chat and we can post that online. And it just to your point too, this is our first round of outreach. So you tuned in at the right time because this is when it's starting. So we hope you're ready to keep participating.
Thank
Some
you.
good insight. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we will be, you know, as we do this, we will compile and keep sharing as more questions come in, more comments come in. We'll sort of keep up that responsiveness in in an FAQ page or something along those lines. I'm just trying to get back to where I was in the chat. I do want to share that there are some comments that have come in. A few people have messaged me directly. And I do want to bring forward. As I mentioned, there are multiple perspectives here. One of the comments says, I feel that the moratorium is a way to preserve community. Short-term rentals disrupt and break down the very fiber of what community is. Is this a consideration for those who ultimately have the authority to change the status of the moratorium? Please keep the moratorium in place. And so, that was sent to me by Ashley, and then she did specifically say it was okay to share it. I do see some back and forth about the moratorium itself and the economic impact of it. We are working in the condition. We are, the moratorium is in place. We do not intend and have not gotten any indication that there is a desire to remove it or change it. We worked to give more notice than required so that people could take the step, which is fairly easy step to get the business license to run a short-term rental. And so we are really trying to, as we say, we were dealing with a situation where there was a lot of change going on, and we wanted to stabilize things so that we could think through and work through this process of the regulations. And so I do want to focus on looking ahead at the regulations. Of course, we are learning from the moratorium as well, and we do not see a situation where we freeze in place the short-term rental situation as it existed in May 2022. We truly want to find a way to achieve an appropriate balance of short-term rentals in the various communities in Marin County. So I just want to keep going with the chat a bit, more about how things are going in Dillon Beach, which does sound like things. It's interesting to hear about the systems in place that are keeping things pretty smooth there. So Moira had a question: engagement. What about short-term renters and users? And thanks for that comment. And we,
I wrote it down. Yeah. Thank you.
As well as HOAs. And then, okay, here's a new topic. Other ways of increasing housing supply, particularly as a means to improve the economics of existing property owners staying in their home, should be on the table as part of this discussion. For example, accelerating ADU development beyond what the county has done and making it easier to extend septic systems where merited to accommodate ADUs. ADUs, accessory dwelling units, I think everybody knows that. So that whole matter is a really interesting and important part of the short-term rental discussion. ADUs, we do recognize and that for a lot of people, that is something that is, a potential income source that lets them hang on to their homes, or it just, provides the flexibility to age in place, to have a family member. It's something that is, kind of a really flexible and manageable way to both increase housing supply and provide for homeowner needs. And so we do, aside from short-term rentals, as this commenter has pointed out, this is an important piece of the housing supply, and we do want to make it easier to do that. And that is a strategy that is in our current draft housing element. We actually have a lot about that. It's a really important strategy for West Marin, and I think it is related to this short-term rental discussion in a lot of ways. So thanks for raising that question. We have a question: what has happened to the 4% tax increase with TOT? And that's something, Kathleen, if you are able to pull up the like all of the places on the web where you can find the information about that is reporting on the TOT spending in West Marin, because that 4% tax TOT increase was very much specified for certain types of uses, and there's a lot of oversight and kind of public discussion around that. So
yeah, I put the Department of Finance's open data source for the TOT in a link in the chat. I also provided the Measure W webpage. And the Measure W webpage has some helpful information because Measure W has a working group that's required to provide updates to the board and set priorities as to how the funds are allocated. And they went to the board, I believe, in July. So there's a pretty recent staff report up there that can give you a nice overview of how much money has been collected and how it's being allocated and what the priorities are for that funding. And we can also, as Sarah noted, as part of like an FAQ, build out more information about that on our short-term rental webpage so that we can make sure that you're all informed about what's going on with Measure W TOT.
Thank you, Kathleen. And then Eric was asking about the complaint data be broken down by year and location. We did provide it broken down by year and by location. We didn't do year and location both, but I think we've hopefully covered that matter sufficiently and can work more offline around that question. There's now a question about, does the Marin County government benefit economically from short-term rentals? And will there be a publicly available report and output made available for everyone to access and weigh in regarding? Scott, I'm thinking that's about the economic benefit. Kathleen, could you talk a little bit about the white paper that was done?
Yeah, that was done in 2017, and it was kind of just like collecting some basic information about the county and providing like options of what the board could consider when it comes to regulations for short-term rentals. It was like used to kick off the conversation around it.
So it didn't go into depth on the economic aspect of it.
I can't speak to that at this point. I can revisit it and get some more information. This was done prior to our time at the county.
Okay, thanks. So we don't, we do not have a budget within this effort to bring on a consultant around the economic piece of it. There is information out there which we can, kind of try to at least put forward and make available around the role that short-term rentals play in the in a visitor economy, and in various areas. There is no question that short-term rentals are short-term rentals, whether they're hotels, residential short-term rentals, any of it, are a part of and play a role in the economy of communities and in the county as a whole. And that it's both direct in terms of the money that's spent here, and then indirect in terms of the employment that it provides for. And then there's the angle of it that is tied to whether this is, how much this is a mechanism for individuals to retain or purchase or afford their homes. So there is certainly an economic angle to this, and it is a lens through which, as we think through sort of possible regulations that might be implementable and make sense, we also need to think about what they might mean economically. There is another question, same from Linda. Okay, we're going back and forth a little bit in the chat about the TOT tax. And then I'm going to do one more question and one more comment, and then I'll get to you, Katie. So there's a question in the chat, which I saw Kathleen had answered farther down. Is this a Board of Supervisors decision to vote on, or would the regulations be put up for a vote in the county? This would be an ordinance, and so that's something that's voted on by the Board of Supervisors, and that's different than the TOT tax. A tax does go directly to the voters, but that is, we are developing this for the purpose of bringing it to the Board of Supervisors for their consideration. And then we've got a comment from Ken. Thank you for your attempt to share the issue with our communities. We do understand that for owners who use their real estate to generate income, this is a volatile issue. However, short-term rentals also remove vital housing from the market and make affordable housing less available. And that has been the situation that we have been observing and hearing about, and is the impetus for this consideration at this time. So I'm gonna,
Sarah, I have to intervene right there just for a moment, because that is the very point. That is, without the proper data, you're creating guidelines around something that is false. That you're stating that as an assumption. And that's not a fair assumption, that the short-term rental homes are taking housing stock off of the rolls, and that there aren't other things that the county could be doing to help with housing for other purposes.
well,
So
I
might be
don't
focusing on the wrong
want to get
thing.
in a dialogue, because we still have a lot of comments, and we have we have people who want to talk, and we're actually past our time, although I'm here as long as anybody wants to stay.
You're making assumptions.
I think there are a lot of perspectives in this, and it affects different communities in different ways, and there are a lot of types of housing that are being used as short-term rentals now. So I'm going to go to, so it is past 7:30, and like I say, I'm here. We will be continuing to address the issues in the chat. We're also continuing to record this, so people, if they need to go and have some dinner or whatever they want to do, can also watch this later. But I see Katie, you have your hand up.
Well, I couldn't let the night go by without saying something. So thank you, Sarah. I know I've taken more than my share of time before, but I just needed to reflect that what is really clear to me is this is such a complex issue. For me to hear you're already working on the terms of the regulations tells me that an end result has sort of been already decided upon. And I would really hope that I would see better proportion of examination, number one, of the effects on the communities as a whole with a short-term rental ban. The other is the value, the property value, the reduction in property value would be enormous in some areas, certainly in Stinson Beach, if there were not short-term rentals allowed. And unfortunately, this is a time since the moratorium went on when some generational changes are happening. And so housing is being sold. People are not purchasing it because they can't do short-term rentals. So this is going to affect everybody. But I'd like us to keep it civil so that we can work on finding housing for the local people who need to live here, who want to live here in this gorgeous place. But please don't just speed it along. It's just too complicated. Thank you.
Yeah, and we don't want to rush into anything. We do have a timeline from the standpoint of there is a moratorium in place, and we want to develop what happens after the moratorium in time to put it in place for that. So that's really there is a time horizon out there that we really need to be working towards in order to be handling this, both responsibly and also as we've been, requested to do by the board.
Sarah, just to build on that statement, there is a question in the chat that asks, like, why did we put a moratorium in place before we had kind of developed all of these regulations and had a path forward? Do you want to speak to that and why we did that and what we learned from Sonoma County?
Yeah, I mean, so a couple of things. One was we had been hearing, concerns from a number of very active individuals and organizations within multiple communities in West Marin of concerns about sort of the speed at which short-term rental conversions seem to be happening in locations where that hadn't even necessarily historically been primarily second home or visitor serving communities. And so that was one piece of it, of a real desire for the situation to be considered for potential management, but also stabilized. And we needed to kind of get a clear baseline in place for this. We did, once we started considering and putting forward the moratorium concept, was happening at the same time as Sonoma County's efforts to do their regulations. They had a situation where they had gone through a couple of years of planning, and then right before the regulations went into place, just got a huge increase in short-term rentals. And so really kind of had a mismatch between, to the degree that there was something of a mismatch between what they had developed and what happened. And so actually they went ahead and put a moratorium in place in the months leading up to their regulations as well. And so that's where that's kind of where we were coming from around that. So I see Mary has her hand up, and then I'm going to pop back over to the chat.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if in your data, can you distinguish between what are privately owned homes that are being rented out and those that might be owned by like corporations that are buying a property as a sort of a business to acquire not only real estate, be real estate investors, but also, be short-term renting them out? And are you taking that into consideration, any difference in ownership of properties.
It's something that's been brought up in the past, so it's something that we will consider, but we have been talking to the Department of Finance about that question as to whether or not we can separate out the data for owners that are primary owners versus some sort of maybe LLC or corporation, but we can't separate out that information because a partner can have one property, the other partner can have the other, they can have LLC, they could have, there's different ways that people own property, which we also have to be respectful of, because it may be a domestic partnership that owns property under a different name. So we are cognizant of this comment that you've made, but we can't get to the fine-grained details of it at this time.
Okay, I just know that they actually incorporated it in the Sonoma County, that they distinguished that in the permitting process. So I just.
Yeah, they did that there, and Novato, I believe, also has a similar requirement that like a real person owns the property. So yeah, that's something that we'll be discussing as we continue these updates or these regulations.
Okay, thank you.
And you know, we have, of course, as we consider that, and we do recognize sort of the different models as they are. There are also, we want to make sure what we do is implementable. Of course, we will be working with county council, so there's some of it it just has to do with, you know, kind of what is appropriate and possible to be managing for. And so, you know, further questions I see here about the intent and impact of the moratorium to Dillon Beach. You know, we're definitely hearing this primarily tonight. You know, this, as we have said, this relates to new short-term rental licenses. So we tried to give lots of time and lots of information to people to get their short-term rental licenses in place, and then they could operate over the course of this time. And
that was my question. Sorry, this is Robert Sahiro. That was my question. So I was just more talking about like, because I'm a full-time resident, I'm a single dad. I raised my 4-year-old son in Dillon Beach, and we never had a problem with like the short-term renters. You know, they're usually families and nice people. And we have a security guard that takes care of all the, you know, garbage and parking situations. So that's never been a real problem, as well as the noise. But I came to learn about this moratorium because I'm relocating this year, or trying to relocate this year, but I can't because I can't sell my home. So I don't know what to do. I mean, waiting till 2024, my son's going to start school next year. He's turning 5. And, you know, I don't know what I'm going to do. So in terms of the impact, I'm more talking about like, you know, I can't sell my home. So what do I do? You know what I mean? It's not the SRTs that bother me. It's the moratorium itself. So, and I don't feel like my neighbors or my community really has a problem with the things that we're discussing tonight. So, you know, it's more the moratorium that is, in my perspective, the problem.
Yeah, and we were, you know, in trying to give people a lot of advance information and notice of the moratorium, we were working to address that issue. And, you know, I think that I know you've engaged with the Department of Finance, and we can engage further offline.
Sarah, it's Jacqueline Hilger-Rolf. I just wanted to bring up a point. There are several people in Dillon Beach that are in the middle of new builds. They bought land and were sitting on it. They're in the middle of builds, and we were unable to get permits for STRs with your deadline because we're not considered approved by the county yet. So, you know, we we are landowners who are in the middle of a very expensive construction project for family homes that we fully intended to probably rent out as short-term rentals. And now we're stuck in the middle of expensive, investment that we fully thought we could be, part-time owners to recuperate taxes and et cetera, to just maintain the homes. I think you need to consider to grandfather those that are in the middle of builds right now.
So when those questions arose during the period, we did, kind of work with the Department of Finance and concluded that something that was underway and in process and had permits issued was something that would qualify for a business license. But I'm also going to suggest that we set up a separate discussion with anyone from Dillon Beach who's on this call or not on this call, who wants to talk through these issues about the moratorium and its effects, because I really want to make sure that we get to these the remaining questions that we have and comments that we have about short-term rentals, and address the current situation of the moratorium separately. Is that something people are up for?
I think that would be a great idea. I think you
Okay.
should do Great Stinson and Dillon Beach.
Great, we will do that. And if you are interested in knowing about that, please email Kathleen, and you can just email her at str@marincounty.org. Is that okay, Kathleen? Sorry to put you.
Yeah, I was just putting it in the chat as well. So yes,
Yeah.
of course.
Okay, great. So I think that might help with this. And anybody who wants to come to that can, but I just want to kind of be respectful of people's time tonight. I see a specific question from Linda about the Dillon Beach Resort. I think let's follow up with that question online about it. And again, if you email Kathleen, we can follow up on that. I see Mary's question around the types of ownership, and so David Bider had a question. How do you make the current situation fair to owners that want an STR in West Marin? It's my understanding some people have permits for STR and now it's 2 years for any to be allowed. Will the current STR have a term limit to other homeowners and a chance, or are they grandfathered in for life? So basically sort of thinking through the fairness aspect of the situation, and we do want to think through and consider the fairness piece of it, and this should not be something that's only available to people who did this before a certain time. So that is part of this matter of our overall balance, and we really, I'm kind of going to take this as a comment to consider that issue and make sure that it's not only people who did this before May 2022 who are ever able to have a short-term rental, and that it is not a situation that we intend to perpetuate in the regulations that we would be recommending going forward. So important to Dillon Beach homeowners that extensive discussion be had before any permanent regulations be instituted. And that is, I hope we have conveyed that we are very cognizant of the situation for Dillon Beach, the conditions in Stinson Beach and the role of these kinds of activities. And yeah, we're really aware of it. And thank you for stating that comment so comprehensively to Philip. And then I see Jacqueline's comment about the homes under construction, and you know, that's something that we can work through in the follow-up meeting that we'll have specifically about Dillon Beach. I'm going to go over to Michael now, and then I'll get back to the chat again.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to comment quickly on the comment about being given plentiful time to register with your short-term rental with the county, and that the letters being sent. And I know Dennis is on the phone and he's aware of the situation. I live in Lagunitas, have a short-term rental. I did not receive the letter. I lived in my home for over 6 months before it was sent to the previous owner. I would have happily registered with the county. And it was my understanding as well that the letter was actually only a courtesy, and that the statute that you were working through was actually specifically around posting that the moratorium was upcoming in the Marin Independent Journal, which had only posted or put the article in, I believe, the month previous. So the only way you could have been aware of the upcoming moratorium is if you saw the article and or received the letter. And for me, in my case, unfortunately not receiving the letter, not being given the same chance as others to quickly enroll. So I just wanted to hear the continuous commentary around being given plentiful time and a level of fairness to those who may or may not have seen the letter, and then also not being allowed to be grandfathered in or pursue any kind of enrollment. And I don't know if there's others like me that have been in a similar situation. So just commenting to that.
Yeah, and thank you. And I am aware of your situation. We really, do our best to reach people who would be impacted by something. And, it is no matter how many mechanisms you work to try, it's really hard because, people have lives and they get, and it gets affected. And we genuinely did want to do everything that was in our ability to make sure that people were aware.
And how is, not to dig deeper, but property taxes, as someone who'd been paying it for that time, how that could have somehow been lost through that process, and how nothing can be done retroactively for those in a very, very specific situation of not being given the same chance.
This is something that is through our Department of Finance and our county council, and it's kind of a particular situation that we've tried to work through. We, like I say, we really did go through the mechanisms that seemed that they would reach, that they would get as close to reaching everybody as we possibly could.
Thank you.
So there is a question about the financial impact, losing the 10% tax on the rentals, as well as the 4% more paid to West Marin. I think we've touched a little bit on the economics, and that is part of the economic picture. We don't want to squelch visitor serving use for a whole lot of reasons. And one of them, and a big part of that reason is economic. A big part of that reason is just opportunities, things people enjoy and value in life. And we are considering all of those issues, and we'll be considering all of those issues in this matter. And if it comes, if we come to conclude that there are reasons to modify or manage the availability or the extent of short-term rental use in some or all of the county, it is, you know, it is not taking away those tax revenues. And so, I mean, and what I'm trying to say there is we are not intending to remove short-term rentals as a use or activity in Marin County. That's not where that's not where even those who are feeling a pinch because of the extent of the activity are asking for it to go, and that's not something clearly that would make sense or meet broader community interests. So we've got previously noted the data is not based on the county's own TOT data, which needs to be used, not some outside data provider. So the county's own TOT data, it captures a whole lot of, first of all, it captures everything that falls into the category of short-term rental. And so that's hotels, that's residential short-term rentals, that's campgrounds, that's all kinds of things. And Kathleen has been spending a lot of time over many months to parse out that data to understand the residential short-term rentals. So that data too has some limitations in terms of our ability to understand what's going on with this specific land use. But you don't use one source to get data, and you don't use one source to even understand the whole story. And so what's going on, can you still see me? Okay, my screen went blank for a second. So what's going on with short-term rentals is something that we are looking at a lot of sources of data for to understand that. I think we've covered that a few times tonight. So I think, you know, we talked a little bit about Rachel's comments. Sorry, we have a lot of comments in the chat here, and we've gotten pretty far behind. But I see a lot of topics that we have talked about already. I'm here on a comment about the need for the transient occupancy tax, and also the activities. You know, we recognize all of these uses. We recognize the role of long-term permanent residents. We also recognize the role of short-term renters, and those who serve them and those who accommodate them. Like these are all people who have a vested interest in these regulations, and that's why we are putting the time and the effort into developing these, you know, over a multi-year period. So I see a question from Peyton: short-term rental versus low-income housing versus 10% tax the county collects. What's the driver? There's not a single driver, but you know, we are looking at this issue from a lens of, does it affect the cost and affordability of housing, and how? And if so, then what is the appropriate and what is the way to address that in a way that still captures the very valid and important uses that short-term rentals play? So there's not one, it's not one like, this is just about this issue or this is just about that issue. It's about kind of capturing this whole range of things, and you know, making sure that we're not that our county's policies and regulations are supporting the whole variety of interests that exist here. I will go to Scott and then go back to the chat. And Scott, if you want to just cover what you said in the chat so that we can
Yep.
kind of cover
sorry,
that too. Yeah.
Sorry, I've been real active. Let me just cover what I just
Don't
sent to the
apologize.
everyone
Yeah.
part of the chat, which was again, Kathleen and Sarah, thank you. Obviously, this is an interest or a topic that has a lot of varied interest and potential hotspots. I can only imagine you must both feel like you're on the hot seat, but please just confirm that the chat, which has a ton of questions and a ton of perspective, will be addressed somehow by you all, so that everyone here who is taking the time to be on the call to voice their concerns from a variety of angles, that it's all going to get answered so that we all have some course of public record on all this, please.
I think that the best way to address the points that are raised in the chat is that we'll kind of pull together the commonalities and do some kind of an FAQ or response document in some way. And that's going to keep going through, and keep getting built on over the course of this effort. But yeah, I do, I totally hear you. I think that it's really important when people participate and say things, they want to know how what they said was taken into account. And that's something that we will also be needing to reflect in whatever recommendations come forward as explanation on it. I'm not going to commit to saying we're going to take every comment and every question and have a specific response to it, because I don't know that that's necessarily showing that we're taking it into account and analyzing what's being said. But yeah, we do take this very seriously and want to make sure what we do is reflecting it and want to show that to people.
Thank you.
Well, this chat will be documented, right? You will keep it as documentation.
Yes, it's part of the record of this.
I mean, you will keep a record, is that correct?
Yeah, we have the record of the chat that we will keep, and this is also being recorded. So everything that everyone's saying is also going to become part of that record as well. We generally post our recordings online after they're complete. We've got 2 more to do, and then once we finish this district-wide outreach, we'll post to our website, and you'll get an update about that if you subscribe to our short-term rental page.
But again, the chats you will have a record of the entire chat. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it gets downloaded after
it's captured with the recording of the meeting. So this has been recording the whole time, and the chat gets captured as well in that recording. And people who watch the recording can see the chat too. I'm just
so the printed chat doesn't keep. You don't keep that.
I will keep I get a transcript that I keep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to look for new points. I think we've covered the Dillon Beach and maybe the Stinson Beach matter as well, and we can pull that out and start some separate discussions on that. Moira's iPad told us that the short-term rental data we're looking at probably includes when actual homeowners are using their own homes. That is a really interesting point, and we'll try to work through that matter and dig into that. I'm just continuing to look. And I see a comment from Maureen. People who don't pay taxes and live in this community full time are impacted also. There's been no mention of how they are being impacted, but they most definitely are. Which, Maureen, if you're still here, do you want to elaborate on that?
Hi, I am still here, and I feel that everything I've been listening to tonight has come from the perspective of fortunate property owners. And I live in Inverness full time, and I've lived here for over 20 years, and I've watched how things have changed and how much more difficult it's become for renters in our community. And these are the people that are really forming the backbone of how our community works. They are the backbone of the people working in our local businesses. They are being forced out. There was a time when there were more available rental opportunities for people. And as things have progressed, and yes, it's true, there have always been short-term rentals in Inverness without question, but never at the level and at the design at which we're seeing today. It's a very different phenomena. And it's a very complex situation, but it just really worries me that the voice of the renters in our community that are struggling to stay and serve have been completely absent in this discussion tonight.
Yeah. Thank you for raising that, Maureen. And I think it ties to Eric's question, which is, why are we assuming, we're saying we're not assuming that there's a specific solution here, but we're assuming that there's a problem and there's an imbalance. And that is the overall challenges with finding housing, with being able to afford housing that people have, are something we hear about every single day from multiple different people who are invested in Marin, and specifically in West Marin. And every business owner who I talk to has huge challenges with employees because they can't afford to live here, and they need to commute in for a long time. We hear a lot about services, schools, many people who are affected in a lot of ways by how the housing situation has changed and evolved over the last few years in West Marin. And what we don't know, and what we're trying to work out and understand first, is what is the role of the prevalence of short-term rentals in some communities in that overall situation. And then secondly, what are the appropriate measures, if any, to take on managing short-term rental as one strategy for addressing that. It's not going to get to the whole thing, but we need to understand if that's an effective strategy to address both the housing issues and overall community concerns about what sort of this matter of the proportion of a community that is in this use. And so that's where we're coming from, and that's what we're trying to understand.
And I thank you for that.
Thanks, Maureen. And so there were a few people who wanted me to answer that question of Eric's. So, but I don't know if they're still here at this point in time. Jamie says, it seems like affordable and attainable housing production goals outside of trying to recapture short-term rentals is data that the county needs to include in this analysis, as it's obviously at the crux of this issue. And that is something that we are very much working in and dealing with right now at the Community Development Agency as part of our housing plan. And we can bring that into what we present around this story. Couple questions about the task force. that's something that was brought up as a possible strategy within the local coastal plan, and something that, might make sense to do if it's going to be a useful approach here. Seems like it might be, and that there's definitely interest around it. So we'll keep posted on that. But the best way to understand that would be to subscribe to the website. I feel like I'm a commercial or something. Subscribe, and then you'll find out about any of these possibilities. So some feedback about mistrust that we didn't do the study and send it out in advance of this. We are. There's always a choice to make about whether it's best to convey something directly and then give people a chance to digest it later, or the other way around. Oh my gosh, I'm like way down here and there's still 51 new messages showing. So I think I answered Eric's question.
I can, if I can kind of step in. I have been also monitoring the
good.
chat. I
Thank you,
don't know
Kathleen.
exactly what you're getting directly. It seems like you may be getting more direct communications than to the whole group, but because it does seem like most of what we have talked about so far is also kind of covering these comments, and some are responses to those, and I think that might be better served like for the response that we'll put in writing to make sure that that's all clear and laid out, to kind of, like you said, collect all these comments and like put them into different categories and address them in that way. Because I'm not seeing a lot of the same repeat comments, and I think there's just like, what I am seeing is that there really are a lot of different opinions that we have here tonight, and that we need to kind of consider all of that, and that there's this kind of message being driven home that these communities are unique, and a one-size-fits-all approach is something that probably is not in the best interest of the people that are here. That's not the right way to phrase it, but a one-size-fits-all approach is not the best approach in a lot of these comments, and that we need to kind of understand that this is a complex issue for each different area. I think that's what I'm really summarizing from the remaining comments.
Yeah, and thank you very much for pulling that summary together, Kathleen. It's just trying to track it. I think you really captured that very well in terms of things, and we can, given that it's already 8:15, I think maybe we should wrap it up at this point, unless somebody has something that they really have as a burning point that has not emerged. One thing that I did see that hasn't been mentioned so much is just really looking to what other communities have done. I think that was Susan who said that. Susan Scott mentioned, really just like, this is not rocket science necessarily. We should look at what other communities have done. She didn't say the rocket science part, but we are certainly not alone in this issue, and there are a lot of experiences out there. And one of the things to understand is, what has worked elsewhere and what might work for what would be something that would be relevant and useful within Marin of those strategies. So I think I will.
Can I just ask a question? Are we to contact Kathleen if we want to do a Dillon Beach community thing? Are we to contact her directly, Kathleen?
Yeah, we put it in the chat for anyone who wants to follow up. STR@marincounty.org.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you.
I'm on that email. I will get back to you. Yeah.
So I see, I think we will try to wrap up. As I say, if anybody has something, you know, really burning that that they want to say, but we will, you know, as requested, and I think would be useful since there's still a bunch of stuff in the chat, that we, you know, we could kind of continue this in a written response kind of form on that. So I guess I will ask, I see Rachel has a hand up. And so Rachel, if you feel like there's a point that really didn't get covered previously, you know, please share. And
Thank you.
I'm continuing to just look at the chat to make sure we haven't missed anything that didn't come up already.
Okay. Well, thank you. I do want one burning statement that I would like to get out there, is that obviously the issues that you're trying to address are complex, but I think you're trying to address multiple issues here. And in doing it and in trying to address housing stock, you're attacking short-term renters. And so I want to highlight this because it's important not to divide the community. You know, everyone wants housing, everyone wants visitors, everyone wants a robust economy. And so if we can all come together under that and then collectively look at if what you're trying to do here is increase housing, then let's have that dialogue. But this dialogue has been about regulating short-term rentals, and it's been made with a lot of assumptions that are incorrect. We see this in this county over and over and over, whether you're for oysters or cows or what, it doesn't matter what it is. Issues divide the community. And I'm asking you as government representatives, and I know our supervisor and Rhonda are on this call, don't let this be another issue that divides and tears apart our community. We're better than that. We're better than any community out there. I ask you to reach up a lot higher, and stop looking at one community or another as solving your problems, because it won't, especially when all the data you're using is faulty. So please reach higher. That's it.
Okay. Well, thank you. And we have heard a lot tonight. It's, you know, been, we knew it was going to be interesting, and it was even more so than I think either Kathleen or I thought, in terms of, you know, just on getting a direct view of a range of issues tonight. And you know, we will be listening to and considering all of the perspectives that have both been offered to us, and that we will be seeking to understand. I think we've heard the feedback. We will continue to make sure that our data is accurate so that it can support good policymaking. And we will also, you know, further delve into discussion around the specific issues of the moratorium with the Dillon Beach homeowners. And we are also going to be, you know, continuing to work with the organizations and the service providers and the people who have been reaching out to us over these many months of you know, their perspectives, you know, that cover the spectrum on short-term rentals. But for now, I think we will wrap up for the night. Thank you very much everyone who came at all, especially those of you who have stuck through it. And please do make sure that you're on our list. We will keep doing work to expand our outreach, but really the best way is if you subscribe.
Great.
Great,
Thanks so
thank
much.
you.
Have a nice evening.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.